Was good, was good. A new segment coming to my platform, Rewind Time. On this platform, with this segment, what I'm doing is I'm just going back in time, reviewing movies, music, food, eras, whatever, rappers, whatever it was dealing with the past in that certain time frame. I'm gonna rewind time and what I'm saying, we're gonna deal with it, what I'm saying, on a different level, because now that we have more knowledge and a lot of things been revealed that we didn't know, it's best to start doing it now. Now, with the movie Juice, it came out when I was 15 years old. I believe I was a freshman in high school. I actually went under the name Bishop for a while, because it was a very, very, very powerful movie. Very powerful movie. I kind of understand now with the younger generations, the music they listen to, and how they out there doing a lot of crime. You do get moved. You know what I'm saying? It does um, guide you in a different direction. Music, movie is real powerful because at 15, your mind is not really, really that strong. You can be easily influenced by seeing something on a movie screen or listen to certain music. So I get it. So what's going on in the world now, I'm not saying that it's right, but I get it because it happened to me. I mean, I didn't go out there and shoot nobody or anything, but it was very, very, very powerful. Like, this is who I looked up to. I was a very, very loyal. I'm talking about when I tell you from the front of the movie, from the first word to the very last word, I know every single word. That's how powerful it was. That's how many times I watched it. I know the flaws in it. There's flaws in it that I'm gonna show y'all, and I'm gonna let you know. That's how much I watched the movie. But without further ado, let's get into it. Juice.
You think you know Juice? Think again. Behind Tupac's breakout film were secrets wilder than anything on screen, from a chair-throwing audition that changed Hollywood forever to George Lucas wanting Tupac for Star Wars. Fistfights, hidden tragedies, and one missing song that still puzzles fans today. This is the real story they never told you. Because the craziest part of Juice didn't happen on camera. It happened behind it. Tupac's chair-throwing audition sealed the deal. In 1991, Tupac Shakur wasn't even supposed to be in the casting room. The young rapper had only come along to support his friend Money B from Digital Underground, who was auditioning for the upcoming film Juice. Money B was originally reading for the role of Steel, but as he flipped through the script, one character stood out: Bishop. Handing the pages to Tupac, he said, "This dude is just like you. You should come in and read for him." That offhand suggestion would change both Tupac's life and movie history. After Money B's audition ended with a polite rejection, the casting team noticed Tupac waiting nearby and invited him to read. Director Ernest Dickerson was intrigued from the moment Tupac began his first lines. Initially, Tupac read for the role of Q, which would later go to Omar Epps. But Dickerson quickly saw something more in him. He handed Tupac a new set of pages and asked him to try reading for Bishop instead. What happened next became the stuff of Hollywood legend. In the middle of the audition, Tupac didn't just act the scene, he lived it. Fueled by raw intensity, he suddenly hurled a chair across the room. The outburst wasn't scripted or staged. It was pure Tupac, unpredictable, emotional, and magnetic. Producer David Heyman, who would later go on to produce the Harry Potter films, remembered how everyone in the room froze. When the scene ended, Tupac simply walked out, then leaned back through the door with a sly grin and said, "You better give me the part, because I know where y'all live." That mix of fearlessness, charm, and authenticity left no doubt. Ernest Dickerson didn't need another audition. He had just found his Bishop. Omar Epps' mother's Diana Ross moment. Omar Epps was still in high school when he landed the role that would change his life. Q, the ambitious young DJ at the center of Juice. But while Epps was thrilled, his mother wasn't so sure. She worried that her teenage son was chasing a dream too uncertain, and even after he got the part, she urged him to focus on something more practical and stable than acting. Epps, torn between his love for music and his growing interest in film, decided to take a chance on the movie. When Juice premiered, he invited his mother to join him, both excited and nervous to see how she'd react to his first big screen performance. That night would change everything. As they sat in the theater, taking in the energy of the premiere, neither of them realized that just one seat away sat Motown icon Diana Ross. For Epps's mother, the moment was surreal. Watching her son sit among entertainment royalty, surrounded by stars, she suddenly saw his dream in a new light. In that instant, all her recognized that he was destined for something extraordinary. Ernest Dickerson's tragic personal dedications. If you stay through the end credits of Juice, you'll notice a short but haunting dedication for Janet and Tamu. Most viewers assume those names belong to family members or crew, but the truth behind them is far more tragic. Janet was director Ernest Dickerson's fiancée. Tamu was a young production assistant who had worked tirelessly on the film. Both women were murdered, their deaths transforming what should have been the most triumphant moment of Dickerson's career, his directorial debut, into one of unimaginable grief. The two tragedies occurred during different stages of the film's creation, casting a long shadow over the production. Dickerson, who had built his name as Spike Lee's trusted cinematographer on films like Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X, suddenly found himself trying to balance professional success with personal heartbreak. Tamu's death was especially devastating. She was killed in Brooklyn after Juice had wrapped filming and moved into post-production. Having been part of the small crew that spent 6 grueling weeks shooting in Harlem, her loss hit everyone hard. But for Dickerson, it struck at the heart of the project. By dedicating Juice to both women, Dickerson turned his pain into a permanent tribute. Every time the film plays, their names appear, a quiet, powerful reminder that behind one of the most important urban dramas of the 90s lay 2 real lives, gone too soon. Tupac was almost a Jedi in Star Wars. One of Hollywood's most fascinating what-ifs is the story of Tupac Shakur almost becoming part of the Star Wars universe. Before his death in 1996, Tupac was reportedly being considered for the role of Jedi Master Mace Windu in Star Wars, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The revelation came from Rick Clifford, a chief engineer at Death Row Records, who remembered a conversation the two had shortly before Tupac's death. Tupac had told him, "Old man, keep your fingers crossed. I've got 3 movies coming up. One of them I've got to read for George Lucas." According to Clifford, Tupac explained that Lucas wanted him to play a Jedi, a role that, just a few years later, would go to Samuel L. Jackson. Tragically, Tupac was killed in September 1996, only months before filming began on The Phantom Menace. The connection is almost eerie. Jackson, who ultimately took on the role of Mace Windu, had shared the screen with Tupac years earlier in Juice. Had fate taken a different turn, audiences might have seen Tupac Shakur wielding a purple lightsaber instead of Samuel L. Jackson, a crossover of hip-hop and sci-fi history that the world never got to witness.
So I still don't like the fact that the reason a lot of movies become authentic, and I think, as I can remember, it started with the American Pie. It became authentic because you have to start putting people in movies that is new to make it believable. Again, as I said before, Will Smith can't play everybody. You know what I'm talking about? Denzel Washington can't play everybody. Great actors, But in order to see something, make something believable, if you want to see the Incredible Hulk, somebody want to play the Incredible Hulk, you want to get somebody, that's more believable. You don't need, Arnold Schwarzenegger to play the Hulk. I understand these Hollywood actors and their experience, but new faces. This is what made Juice, pop out. Same thing, with Menace to Society. Old Dog, Kane, you know what I'm talking about? We don't know them new actors. And make it more believable. Give it that authentic documentary type feel. You know what I mean? It's good to see, people play roles to Tom Cruise, but not in everything. I don't want to see him in everything. I don't want to see Samuel L. Jackson in everything. Again, great actors. They got movies that, couldn't nobody play that better than him. But also, when you're doing certain movie roles, it's good to cast new faces to make it more believable. That's all I'm saying.
Tupac's $15,000 paycheck shopping spree. When Tupac Shakur got paid for his role in Juice, he did what any young star might dream of. He went on a shopping spree. For his breakout performance as Bishop, Tupac earned $15,000, split into 2 checks, one for $9,000 and another for $6,000. For an independent film with a small budget, that was a generous payday for a first-time actor. Casting director Jackie Brown later recalled that there hadn't even been a set salary structure at the time, with most actors earning between $1,000 and $3,000 per week. But Tupac's presence was undeniable. As Brown put it, "You guys want him. He's worth every penny." The moment he cashed those checks, Tupac celebrated the only way he knew how, by buying jewelry. His close friend and personal assistant, Kendrick Wells, remembered seeing him spend nearly the entire sum on what he described as a silver or gold collection. That decision said everything about where Tupac was in life. He wasn't interested in saving or investing. He wanted something he could see, wear, and feel. Something that told the world he'd made it. For a young man who had grown up with so little, that jewelry wasn't just about luxury. It was about identity and validation. In early 90s hip-hop culture, chains and rings were more than fashion. They were proof of success, symbols of survival. For Tupac, his first big purchase didn't just shine, it spoke. The movie poster sparked a gang color controversy. Even before Juice hit theaters, Paramount Pictures found itself caught in a storm of controversy, all because of a movie poster. The original design showed Tupac Shakur holding a gun, shrouded in a bluish haze, with the tagline boldly printed in red, "Power."
I'm sorry about that. That's the one that I remember. When I was coming out of high school, I think I was a freshman, they had this billboard everywhere. I originally, I thought it was Wesley Snipes. So, because back then Wesley Snipes was playing a lot of movie films. When he did the Michael Jackson Bad, you remember he had the hood on, Wesley Snipes. I thought that was Wesley Snipes, really, when I saw that. But I'm like, no, that's not Wesley. That was Tupac. But that's the original one that they had over billboards all through when he had that gun. And remember back in them days, if you had a gun, it ain't what y'all got now, switches and stuff like that. But to have a gun back then, man, that was it's a sign of, again, power, respect. Different time frames than it is now. Everybody got a gun now.
Respect. Juice. How far will you go to get it? But the issue wasn't just the weapon. It was the colors. The mix of red and blue instantly drew criticism for echoing the colors of the Bloods and Crips, Los Angeles's most notorious rival gangs. Many accused Paramount of glamorizing gang life rather than condemning it. Community groups like Mothers Against Gangs in Communities, MAGIC, led protests, saying the poster's imagery completely undermined the film's supposed anti-violence message. The backlash became so intense that local TV stations in LA aired the unedited poster on the news while covering the outrage. Facing public pressure, Paramount eventually pulled the design and released a toned-down version. Still, the damage was done.
So I'm gonna show y'all the toned down version. I'm gonna show y'all that one. So right here, this is the original right here. This is the one that I saw. You see him with the gun? This is the one that kind of got everybody going. This one here. Then let me see right here. They also had this one right here. So this is the actual one that you see for the movie review, where it say Power, Respect, Juice. This is the one right here. How far will you go to get it? That's the one that I remember. That's the exact one right there. And when I tell you, just seeing this here, man, it went crazy. Like, that nobody know none of these people. Nobody. You know what I'm saying? Omar Epps wasn't no star. Tupac, he did some digital underground things. He wasn't really known. He was, Baltimore Jada era type, nobody seen Raheem. Like I said, if these people did something, it wasn't nothing big. Remember back in the 90s, there was only so much as far as what media exposed. It's not like now to where you put something and go viral. There wasn't no virals back then. It wasn't none of that. A picture go viral and might be seen on the news or in a newspaper or something like that. You go viral like that. But no, this was very powerful right here. Now, so that's the one with money, power, respect, how far would you get it? Like I say right here also. Then this what they did. You see how they did it now? Where he got his hands right there, there's no gun. You know what I'm saying? There's no gun right there. They removed the gun. They removed the gun, right? Power, respect, juice. No gun. And then with the Bloods and Crip, the colors with the, they kind of going right here now. Talking about juice in that order, to try to, dim it down for the whatever. But I'm just showing y'all, how they had to, it was, people was concerned involved back in the 90s, it was a concern involved, it was a community, everything was a community.
How do you sell authenticity in urban storytelling without crossing the line into exploitation? Spike Lee's cinematographer's directorial debut. Before Juice, Ernest Dickerson was already a force behind the camera, one of Hollywood's most respected cinematographers. His move into directing wasn't just a personal milestone, it was a turning point in film history. What made this transition so remarkable was his long creative partnership with filmmaker Spike Lee, one of the most groundbreaking voices of his generation. The two met while studying at New York University's film school and quickly formed a bond built on shared vision and artistic ambition. Their first collaboration, Spike Lee's master's thesis film Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop, We Cut Heads, 1983, won a Student Academy Award and launched both of their careers. Dickerson went on to become Lee's trusted visual architect, shaping the look of 6 of his most iconic films. She's Gotta Have It, 1986, School Days, 1988, Do the Right Thing, 1989, Mo Better Blues, 1990, Jungle Fever, 1991, and Malcolm X, 1992. His mastery of color, light, and movement defined the visual language that became synonymous with Spike Lee's work. In 1990, Dickerson made history as the first African-American member of the American Society of Cinematographers, ASC, breaking barriers in an industry that had long overlooked black artists in technical and creative leadership roles. When he finally stepped into the director's chair for Juice in 1992, it marked both an ending and a beginning, the close of his era as Spike Lee's right hand, and the birth of his own voice as a filmmaker. Fittingly, their final collaboration, Malcolm X, became a film about vision, leadership, and legacy, themes that reflected both men's journeys. For Dickerson, years of guiding actors and framing Lee's powerful stories had been the perfect training ground for what would become his own defining debut. Tupac's mysterious absence from the soundtrack. One of the most puzzling mysteries surrounding Juice is that Tupac Shakur, whose performance as Bishop defined the entire film, was completely left off the official soundtrack. The omission is especially strange considering how successful the Juice soundtrack became. Released in early 1992, it quickly turned into one of the most influential hip-hop compilations of the decade, earning gold certification from the RIAA just weeks after the movie's debut. The lineup was stacked with early 90s hip-hop royalty: Naughty by Nature's Uptown Anthem, Eric B. and Rakim's Juice, Know the Ledge, Big Daddy Kane, Salt and Peppa, and Cypress Hill. On the R&B/hip-hop chart, proving that if Tupac's music had been included, it could have pushed the album even higher.
What Tupac did back in the day, right? Wasn't nobody, see, Tupac had a movie out, and then he had an album out. Nobody was doing that back then. He kind of broke out with that. Also, you see his pants sagging? Tupac invented that. Wasn't nobody walking around sagging. Nobody. Tupac brought that out. Wasn't nobody sagging. The hood, we wasn't wearing hoods back in the day. Tupac brought that out. I'm not, of course, based on the filmmaker, people had to create a certain players, but it was seen here. You know what I'm saying? We started wearing black Levi jackets with the hood. That's where the Timbs come from. That's where the Timbs come from. Was nobody wearing Timbs back then? You know what I mean? Timbs came from that. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Culturally, you got the Timbs, you got the hoodie on. You know what I'm saying? He's sagging. He birthed that. Just like Old Dog birthed, the dreads. You know what I'm saying? With the Hush Puppy shoes. Again, as a youngster, you watch that stuff and you want to mimic that. Like right now, people want to mimic Chief Keef, the NBA YoungBoy, culturally. So you have to be important and careful of what you feed the youth, because that's why a lot of youth out here dying. They're hearing and seeing things and they don't understand. It's all a mirage. But now, what about this scene? What I want to say here, when he was talking to Rodman, you know what I'm saying? And Raheem was like, no, it's cool, man, it's cool. Because he said, hey, Raheem, you better watch your boy. I stomped the shit out of her. And Tupac like, you ain't said nothing but a word. And he was like, yeah, if you want to look no further, let's go with your pa, with your pa, like, right. What Tupac was saying right here is, he said, you need to have respect for me. I was almost your father, but the line too fucking long, Now, back in these days, things like yo mama, what I'm talking about, or suck my dick was very powerful word. Words meant something back then. If you like, that suck my dick, you like, what? Like, it's, because it's simple, rainbow type atmosphere. Today, like, nothing. People like, man, what time, when? You still want me to do that? But back then, that was something real deep, real big. Your mama, the mama jokes, your mama this, your mama that. Them, there was the era. Let me continue. I don't want to spoil it. Sorry about that.
What makes the decision even more baffling is that Tupac was already an established artist when Juice hit theaters. His debut album, Tupacalypse Now, had been released just 2 months earlier in November 1991, drawing both controversy and critical acclaim. He wasn't a newcomer. He was already making waves. The soundtrack was produced by Hank Shockley and the Bomb Squad under
Let me show you when he walked off right here, the boots that he had on. Them not Tim's, but this what birth kind of Tim's. This what the birth to Tim's. Watch this.
Waves. The soundtrack was produced by Hank Shockley.
Right there. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what birthed. That's the Riverside motherfucker. This part right here, after he hit him 3-4 times and said Riverside and walked off, I was gone. I'm glad I didn't have a gun. I probably would have shot anybody just to react the scene. Like, it was crazy, bro. You gotta be real careful, man. This stuff is real powerful, man. Like, real powerful, bro.
And the Bomb Squad under Shockley's new SO Records label in partnership with MCA Records, marking his first major feature film soundtrack. To this day, no one has ever officially explained why Tupac was excluded. Fans and music historians have speculated for decades, but the truth remains unknown, making his absence one of the most enduring mysteries in the Juice legacy. A deadly real-life connection to the film. 2 years after Juice hit theaters, the film became linked to a chilling real-life tragedy that highlighted how deeply movies can sometimes influence vulnerable young minds. In 1994, a murder trial in Cardiff, Wales, made international headlines after 3 gang members claimed they were inspired by Juice when they brutally kicked a man to death. The case involved 4 young men from a local gang. During the trial, 3 of them told the court they were directly imitating scenes from Ernest Dickerson's film. Their defense, blaming a movie for their actions, sparked outrage, media frenzy, and a heated debate about the impact of violent films on impressionable youth.
Now, see what I'm talking about? This is not a lie. I just said that. It has a very, 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 because you wasn't seeing stuff like this. You know, America wasn't ready for that. You see other little stuff, little, you know, peanut butter jelly, you know, type movies. This here was extremely big because it's putting a mirror in front of you. You know what I mean? We're living this life. Like, this is stuff we seeing every day, being harassed by the police, this in school, you know, your mama going to work, you here, you know what I'm saying? You know, you watching TV, you know, you ditching school. Like, this is what we was doing back in the 90s. So, you know, culture-wise, it'll relate to you, you know what I mean? And it have a more fun. Then you start seeing, you know, him coming from just a regular guy, getting guns and doing things, man. You'll mess around, act that out, and be in jail for the rest of your life. True stuff.
All 4 defendants faced serious consequences, though their sentences varied. 3 were convicted of murder under British law, while the 4th was found guilty of manslaughter, suggesting the court believed he played a smaller role in the attack. The case quickly became part of a broader cultural conversation about media influence and youth violence in the 1990s. Urban crime dramas like Juice, once praised for their realism, were suddenly under fire, with critics questioning whether they reflected society's problems or fueled them. The connection between the film and this tragedy was reported by the Times of London on March 23, 1994, forever linking the murder to Juice in both legal and media history. It remains one of the most haunting examples of defendants claiming that a movie directly inspired their crime. The famous 2-gun movie mistake. One of the most noticeable continuity errors in Juice occurs during the film's most intense moment, when Bishop shoots his friend Raheem in the abandoned building after their failed robbery. Eagle-eyed viewers have long spotted something odd in that scene. Bishop appears to be holding 2 completely different guns at once.
So yeah, I've been seeing that. I don't think they had the money for the budget, but right here, you see the gun is right here, right here. I mean, how can you not see that? The gun is right there in his hip, and then he got the other gun in his right, you know, hand pocket. So that's kind of something that I've been peeped. You know what I'm talking about? I've been peeped that out.
Long spotted something odd in that scene. Bishop appears to be holding two completely different guns at once. As Raheem confronts him and demands the gun used in the heist, a revolver is clearly visible tucked into Bishop's left pocket. But seconds later, when Bishop pulls out a weapon to fire, it's an entirely different gun, leaving fans puzzled about where the second one came from. Some viewers have theorized that Bishop might have taken the convenience store owner's gun earlier in the movie, but that explanation doesn't add up. The store owner's gun was a long-nosed revolver, and Raheem's was a snub-nose. Neither matches the one Bishop is seen carrying during the confrontation. The confusion grows in the rooftop chase scene, where Bishop somehow fires more than 6 rounds without reloading, a clear impossibility out amid one of the film's most powerful and tragic moments. Omar Epps actually learned to DJ. Most actors rely on movie magic, clever camera angles, and hand doubles to make specialized skills look convincing on screen. But Omar Epps wasn't most actors. When preparing to play Q, the aspiring DJ at the center of Juice, Epps decided to go all in. Instead of faking his way through the turntable scenes, he made a bold choice: to actually learn how to DJ before filming even began. It was an unusual move for Hollywood at the time. Most productions would have simply used close-ups of a professional's hands, cutting between shots to create the illusion of skill. But Epps understood that Q's passion for music wasn't just a character detail, it was the heart of the story. He wanted audiences to believe in Q's dream, and that meant doing the real work. So he learned the art of spinning records, controlling the crossfader, and mastering the rhythm that defined hip-hop's early DJ culture.
So let me show you something. So right here, right? At this point, they just Tupac just shot and hit Raheem. When the police, you know what I'm saying, like when he going through his head spinning, doing one of them scenes, at the end of it, that's when Tupac shot Steel. That's after he, they was at the game room and he got over Steel and said, you know what, Fat Chops, I want this to work out, but he turned around and said, you on Q? You just ain't cool no more. And then, you know what I'm saying, he like, what the fuck you want from me? He said nothing. He closed his eyes and shot him. That hasn't happened yet. So when he visualizing this right here, when the police finna come talk to him, you know what I'm saying, the other dude DJing, he in a daze. Now, when he head going crazy, he's supposed to be remembering things that had already happened. That's why they were showing him when he was sitting in the hallway and things like that. When Raheem was there, this haven't happened already. This hasn't happened. So that's something also that I kind of noticed back then.
Hey, yo, man, damn, about time you came home. Hey, man, what you doing here, man? I thought we were supposed to meet at the pool hall. What happened, man? I thought... Let's just come on. I need you to help me make this money back, okay? Just come on. Stop being a friend. Let's go.
Yo, man, where we going?
Just down here. Being a punk. It ain't gonna take but a minute. No big chops. I really wanted all this to work. But you and Q, you ain't cool no more. See? That's what it's all about. See how scared you are?
Don't you get tired of this shit? What the fuck you want from me?
Nothing.
Okay, I don't know. I'm tweaking, Joe. So earlier, as you seen that that part that happened with Tupac and Steel, that's later. This part right here is before that, so it hasn't. No, this part hasn't happened already. The part that I showed y'all, this part came first. So let me show y'all this.
Fuck that, you are brothers. Every piece of cake, Q.
See what I'm talking about? How would you see that? That hasn't happened yet. So that's another flaw in the movie right there. You know what I'm saying? I know the movie back and forth, but that's another flaw in the movie. You know what I mean? Right.
Art of spinning records, controlling the crossfader, and mastering the rhythm that defined hip-hop's early DJ culture. The dedication paid off. Every scene of Epps behind the turntables feels authentic. The timing, the confidence, and the precision all reflect someone who truly knows the craft. For hip-hop fans, that authenticity mattered. They could instantly tell the difference between someone pretending to DJ and someone who actually understood the music. By putting in the work, Omar Epps didn't just play a DJ. He became one. And in doing so, he gave Q's story a level of realism and heart that still resonates decades later. A high school prank that turned physical. The cast of Juice may have played close friends on screen, but behind the scenes, things weren't always as easygoing, especially when a joke went too far. Jermaine Hopkins, who played Steel, once decided to prank his co-star Tupac Shakur during filming. He thought it would be harmless fun, a quick laugh between friends. But the joke backfired in a way no one saw coming. Hopkins later explained that Tupac had a habit of stepping off set during production, sometimes to cool off from the emotional intensity of playing Bishop, other times just to clear his head. It became noticeable enough that Hopkins decided to tease him about it. So one day he told Tupac that he'd been fired from the movie. He expected Tupac to laugh, maybe panic for a second, then realize it was just a prank. But that's not how it went. When Tupac learned it wasn't true, he didn't find it funny. Not at all. He took it personally. What started as a joke quickly escalated into a physical confrontation that stunned everyone on set. It was a moment that revealed something deeper about Tupac's mindset at the time. Even early in his career, he was fiercely protective of his work and his opportunities. For someone trying to prove himself as both a rapper and an actor, being told he'd lost his breakout role, even as a joke, hit a nerve. The film's incredibly profitable budget ratio. While Hollywood's biggest blockbusters often dominate headlines, Juice quietly became one of the most remarkable financial success stories of the early 1990s. Made on a modest budget of just $4 to $5 million, the film went on to earn $20.1 million worldwide, an extraordinary return that made it one of the most profitable movies of 1992. That success didn't come from flashy effects or big-name stars. It came from smart budgeting, sharp marketing, and the raw, breakout performances of a young, mostly unknown cast. Originally, Island World Productions struggled to find financing.
As I said before, unknown cast. It make it look more realistic. You can't keep having superstars in movies. You know what I mean? It just don't work. They just don't do that with Menace to Society. Sometimes you can just do too much and it's like, it don't make it believable. You know, I'm gonna do Menace to Society sometime later, but you know, a little spoiler, you know, they wanted Tupac in it, they wanted Spice One to play Kane. And you know, at that time, Spice One was a huge hip hop. You know, and I'm not saying that he couldn't pull the role off, but let's just get new faces. Now, the reason they get all these same people to play all these roles is because most of them already in Hollywood. You know what I mean? So they'll get this role, they'll get that role. That's kind of, hey, you know, there's a door. Remember, under that act. You know, so yeah. But you know, business wise, they do better when they get new people, bring out new people. You know what I mean, and just go like that.
But after the success of other urban dramas like New Jack City and Boys and the Hood, studios began paying attention to the growing demand for authentic black storytelling. Once Juice was finished, a bidding war erupted among major studios. Paramount Pictures won the distribution rights by promising a $10 million marketing budget, twice the cost of making the film. The gamble paid off. When Juice opened over Martin Luther King Jr. weekend in January 1992, it pulled in $8 million in just 3 days, a stunning debut that proved audiences were ready for stories grounded in realism and cultural truth. By year's end, Juice ranked as the 6th most profitable film of 1992, Stone. Proof that films led by black actors, made with authenticity and purpose, could deliver both critical acclaim and box office gold. Its success paved the way for a new wave of urban dramas throughout the decade, showing that sometimes the smallest or generic city backdrops, Juice was filmed entirely on location, in the real streets of Harlem, New York. Director Ernest Dickerson made that choice intentionally. He wanted the film to look and feel authentic, to capture Harlem as it truly was in the early 1990s. The result was a raw, almost documentary-like realism that grounded every scene in truth. The production used A. Philip Randolph High School, located at 443 West 135th Street, as the school attended by Q, Bishop, Raheem, and everyday life and energy of the community. Several Harlem street corners also became iconic parts of the film's identity. St. Nicholas Terrace and 135th Street served as the spot where the crew waits for Steele when he's used for Bishop's tense second confrontation with Radams and his gang. And 416 West 129th Street became the backdrop for the scene where Red's gang chases off a passerby while Bishop watches from nearby. The 6-week shoot, which began on March 13, 1991, took place entirely in real Harlem neighborhoods. That meant the cast and crew weren't just recreating the world of their characters, they were living in it. Tupac demanded to stay in character on set. Tupac Shakur's approach to playing Bishop went far beyond traditional acting. He became the character. From the moment filming began, he refused to break role, insisting that everyone on set call him Bishop, even when the cameras weren't rolling. He believed that staying in character was the only way to capture Bishop's raw emotion and unpredictable energy. For a first-time film actor, this level of method acting was almost unheard of. While most newcomers focused on remembering lines or hitting their marks, Tupac was exploring the deep psychology of his character, the pain, paranoia, and rage that drove him. He carried that intensity through every moment on set. The cast and crew adjusted to his unusual process, addressing him as Bishop during lunch, rehearsals, and even offhand conversations. It created a strange but powerful atmosphere, one where no one was entirely sure when Tupac ended and Bishop began. For his co-star Omar Epps, this immersion made their dynamic electric. The tension between Q and Bishop on screen felt real because in many ways it was. Tupac's total commitment blurred the line between performance and reality, forcing everyone around him to react authentically. Studios wanted it as a comedy. When writers Ernest Dickerson and Gerard Brown first began pitching Juice around Hollywood in the mid-1980s, studio executives completely misunderstood what the film was meant to be. Instead of recognizing the story as a serious psychological drama and social commentary, executives kept suggesting that they lighten it up, even turning it into a comedy. It wasn't just one misguided opinion either. Multiple studios made the same tone-deaf suggestion, missing the point entirely. The script explored dark, weighty themes: police harassment, gang violence, the struggles of urban youth, and the gradual moral decay of a young man consumed by power. But somehow, Hollywood decision-makers looked at this and thought it would work better with jokes. At one point, the script was even optioned by the Donner's Company, which seriously considered transforming Juice into a comedy. Their plan would have turned Bishop's chilling descent into violence into a lighthearted misadventure, a far cry from the raw, unsettling story the writers had envisioned. This disconnect revealed how little Hollywood understood black urban life at the time. In the 1980s, most studios had no idea how to market serious films about inner-city struggles. Their default solution was to soften the edges with humor, to make the realities of these and the success of groundbreaking films like New Jack City and Boys and the Hood, for studios to finally realize that audiences.
When they say make it safer for mainstream, they talking about white kids. 'Cause that's where we was living at. Where we don't want the white kids to go violent and listen, make it a comedy. Yeah, don't, come on, we know what's going on. Like, nah. That's what they wanted to do. At this time, that was the culture that we was kind of living at. Keep in mind, NWA, when they come out with the Straight Outta Compton, remember, they didn't want to play them records. They wanted to, the CDs, they wanted to break the CDs. They wasn't ready for that. It's always been there. It's just never been addressed. It's been there. It just, they didn't want to give it, they didn't want to highlight it. Because, which was good in some way, because we can see where we at now with all this, music, movies being glorified. We losing a lot of our youth. So, maybe they had it right back then. I guess they was protecting us, protecting the youth, and now they just removed the veil, and we see what was happening now would have been happening back then.
Didn't want watered-down stories. They wanted authenticity. And because of that cultural shift, Juice was finally allowed to be made the way Dickerson and Brown had always intended, as a raw, powerful, and unflinching portrait of ambition, violence, and survival in urban America. The script sat on a shelf for 9 years. The screenplay for Juice was actually finished way back in 1984, nearly a decade before it ever made it to the big screen. Ernest Dickerson and Gerard Brown had crafted what they believed was a powerful, honest story.
If that would have came out in 84, it would have been crazy. It wasn't ready for that 84. It wasn't. Not in 84. Wasn't ready. I think 84 I was 7. 8. I was 8. In 84 I was 8. I would have probably never been able to see Juice back then at 8 years old because I'd never been to a movie as a child. We was too poor. You know what I mean? I think at the time minimum wage was like, I don't know, $2 or something. Like it was really like $2.50, literally. No joke. Like $2.50. It was not a lot of money. I remember back in the 90s it was $3.25. So we know in 84 there was nowhere on earth I was going to see that. And probably by the time I did see it, I don't know. During a time frame it was released, it seemed like 91. It's kind of, I was 15, freshman in high school. So, I probably wouldn't know how to at 8 years old, it probably would have been different. I probably wouldn't have been so involved in it because I was still a kid. I wouldn't understand. But at 15 in high school, you find your way. You just being able to be on the streets by yourself, very powerful.
Story about friendship, violence, and survival in the inner city. But at the time, Hollywood wasn't ready for it. Studio after studio rejected the project. Executives called it too dark, too violent, and too real. They insisted that audiences wouldn't be interested in such a raw look at black urban life. Some even suggested rewriting it entirely or turning it into something lighter. Even Dickerson's own agent told him flat out, the film would never get made as written. So the script sat untouched for years, collecting dust while Dickerson built an impressive career as a cinematographer, working on Spike Lee's.
Well, I'm gonna agree with that because during that time, it was they wasn't even ready for Straight Outta Compton, which bumped MC Hammer. They kind of bumped him, after he did the That's Why We Pray. Hammer, Please Don't Hammer Don't Hurt Him. He did 30 Million. Unheard Of back in the 80s. And when NWA came out with Straight Outta Compton, it kind of bumped him out the way. So this kind of, move in that format. You had stuff like Crush Groove, what I'm saying, with the Fat Boys and Run DMC had back then. They were making movies, and I'm just speaking of the type of movies. The Ice-T came out with the game banger movies back then. It wasn't as this was. It was corny, but this was powerful. But it wasn't written. No times in the 80s was it. People was ready for this. It wasn't. But the 90s, and again, not only based on Boys in the Hood, you already had the NWA. You had the Ghetto Boys out. You know what I mean? So now we coming up with gangster rap. So it kind of came in with that era. But before then, forget about it. Everything was pretty much neutral. It was nice and neat.
The Right Thing and Malcolm X. Ironically, as he was shooting those films, the same social issues that Juice explored, violence, poverty, disillusionment, were only growing worse in real life. Yet Hollywood still refused to see its relevance. Everything changed in 1991. John Singleton's Boys in the Hood became a surprise box office and critical success, proving that audiences were ready for authentic stories about life in America's inner cities. Practically overnight, Hollywood's attitude shifted. Gerard Brown's new agent rediscovered the Juice script and was stunned that it had never been made.
No, he wasn't stunned to have it never been made. Remember, they let somebody else take a chance on Boys in the Hood. If Boys in the Hood would have flopped, there would be no Juice, there would be no Men's Society, there would be no South Central, stuff like that. Because they're like, well, they don't want to go in that direction. You understand? So somebody had to take a chance first and be like, you know what, I'll do it. If I lose $20 million and, it flopped, then other directors going to be like, we cool. They did the Boys in the Hood. That didn't work out. Why would we do Juice? Why would we do Men's Society? If that didn't work, and this is more, it will be more violent, more realistic, because even Boys in the Hood at the time, it was some violence in there, not as much, but it was definitely moved around a gang culture. But then, like I said, they put Ice Cube in there, and remember, Ice Cube in that time was the biggest star out there, flat out. So that kind of sold the movie, with Ice Cube in there. And that's kind of how they was trying to do things, where you put a famous rapper in there. That's why they tried to do Spice One for Men's Society. Really, Now, although Tupac was a rapper when Juice hit, with the Tupac Caplice was out, it just kind of wasn't, it's this cast is perfect. And from here, everybody kind of blew up. Raheem, he did some other things, but he was older. So But everybody kind of moved forward from this here, you know. But again, if Boys in the Hood would have flopped, you'd have never seen Juice, you'd have never seen Menace to Society.
Made. Within weeks, studios that once dismissed it were suddenly competing for the rights. A bidding war broke out, and the same screenplay that had been shelved for 9 long years was now exactly what Hollywood wanted. What had once been too real had finally become the truth the world was ready to see. In the end, Juice wasn't just another movie from the early 90s. It was a revolution in storytelling. It captured the raw energy, danger, and emotion of a generation that Hollywood had ignored for too long. Behind every frame was a battle, to be heard, to be seen, and to tell the truth. And more than 3 decades later, it still hits just as hard. But what do you think? Was Juice ahead of its time?
Juice wasn't ahead of this time, not at all. Juice wasn't ahead of this time. You know, it was certain scenes in there. That's how New York was living at the time. During that time, you know, New York was kind of, you know, it had its ups and downs, but Juice, I'm not gonna say Juice. Boys in the Hood, birth. Boys in the Hood, birth. Everything as far as, you know, dealing with them type of movies. Because based on that, you got a whole bunch of movies that actually came out at the Boys in the Hood, Juice and the Menace to Society. So now they type of movies they want to have. People make movies up too. And the movies that's up to me, Both Deal, Tyrant, like Father, like Son, man, that's a Chicago movie. When I tell you that thing there is the Tyrant like Father, like Son. You talking about killing, you talking about realistic. That's kind of what people kind of want. It's just like when you, like right now on YouTube, y'all watching me, right? But back then, people watching TV. People watching stuff like Thanksgiving is Friday, or you're watching a movie, All My Children, you know what I'm saying? We had the, you know, the cartoons. It's like, now people just want to see what's really going on. The world is too messed up to be, I mean, it's, you know, they don't put the movies on the stream now. You know what I mean? The movie theater's not making that as much as money. You got to drive, you got to see. It's just a lot of things that can happen. So right now, people want to see real, people want to see what's going on. We didn't have that luxury back then. So we have to kind of deal with what we had. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah, but Juice was a very powerful movie, and you know, every time I watch it, it just brings me back, you know, to a time frame when and you know, it's real important during your youth, you know, to kind of watch how, you know, or what you feed, you know, the children, because again, if you know, you know what I'm talking about. I kind of you know, and again, you know, it's my first review. It'll get better. It'll get better, you know. But I'm liking this. You know, hopefully y'all support me and what I'm, you know, doing. And you know, I'm bringing it to you, bringing you something different. Um, the movie I know back and forth. And you have any questions about the movie, hit the inbox. I have a question. I have an answer for the question. Um, Still, there's some scenes in the movie, like Bob when he was in the elevator, and the elevator scene when Q said, "Would you shoot an elevator?" He tried to shoot, the man held his hand. At the end, he's still looking at the elevator. There's nobody in the elevator. He's still doing like this. And Q came behind him and hit his arm. That was a flaw. That was a flaw that we talked about. The fight scene at the end when they fight, like if you the way they looked over right here. So the ledge right here. This is the same one that they jumped off of, right? And when the police was chasing them after they ran from the store, the ledge was like about right here because the police had to look over. So they would have to jump real high. The jump would have been impossible. The stool would have to be little for them to jump on that and go to the other building. But that's the same place where when he fight Q and he hit him and he kind of fell over. You know what I'm talking about? That's kind of the same one that happened right there then. Tupac was supposed to play Jody and Baby Boy. That's something that they didn't mention, right? So we know in the movie Baby Boy that Tyrese eventually ended up getting that part. We know that Tupac was supposed to play Jody. Now, I'm going to be honest. I think he would have played a better part than Tyrese, but Tyrese killed it. Tyrese killed it. Tupac probably would have did better in that. Tupac, because remember, he did poetry, so he was already in school doing these type of activities, you know what I'm saying, and acting and rapping, and again, that was his real life anyway. Now, in the movie Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks, his friend Bubba, hey Bubba, Tupac's supposed to play Bubba. I know y'all probably didn't know that. And I know y'all know about Malik and High Alerter. So they were looking for Tupac. They were trying to get him in that Hollywood spotlight early. Very, very, very talented. You know, life just took faith and went different. They probably would have. They tried to get Tupac in that Will Smith type role. Will Smith was rapping and this and that, and they moved him to the movie screen. And I'm kind of glad, you know, because that probably could have tainted him, you know, to go look like we got Will Smith now. You know, everybody knows he's under the rainbow type stuff, and Hollywood would do that. You know, they offer a lot of money. You know what I mean? Things and that. But I think he did better expand his rap career, and he could have did some movies on the side, but he did his thing, man. You know, I'm not gonna spoil the, you know, the review, the opening. Man, I thank everybody. If you have anything that you want me to review or whatever, you want to talk about it, all you gotta do is hit the inbox and I'll look into it and I'll try to get on top of that. You know what I'm saying? But until next time, you know, y'all wait on the next one that's coming out. And you know, successful and whatever, I'll bring you more on the way. But this is the new segment. I'm still going to do my old regular podcast because I got a lot of things I got to talk about that don't concern the rewind past. You know, so you know, I just want and this only sound really because this is like the debut. So you know, we getting to understand it. I'm still gonna do my other podcast. You know what I mean? I got a lot of things that's very important that I want to talk about. But this segment right here, you know, I kind of like. So when you see the different intro, you know exactly, you know what I'm gonna bring forth to you. You know what I'm saying? Until next time, I'll let you get it.